For 4 years, my parents told everyone I had disappeared. They said I abandoned my family after I stopped sending money home. But then I walked into a pharmacy 600 miles away and saw my own face on a missing person flyer. I wasn't missing. I was alive, and someone had been using my name to steal nearly $1 million. When I started digging, I discovered forged signatures, fake companies, a stolen inheritance, and a secret my own parents had hidden from me. But the biggest shock came when I found out why they needed everyone to believe I was gone. If you were in my position, would you confront your family immediately or investigate in silence? Tell me what you would do in the comments, and subscribe for more stories where the truth is never what it first seems. The first time I learned my parents had reported me missing, I was standing in a pharmacy 600 miles from home, holding a prescription with my own name on it. A cashier pointed toward a bulletin board. My face was there. The photograph was from my sister's graduation. Under it, Kaylin Varelli, missing since October 14, 2022. My name is Kaylin Varelli. I was 32, a municipal records analyst living in Northbridge. Back home, apparently, I was a missing person. I photographed the flyer and stared at the image in my car. The flyer said my parents had not heard from me since I left home. I had left home and stopped speaking to them, but I had never disappeared. 4 years earlier, I had been sending money home every month. I sent $800 a month. Then my father started asking for more. My father, Merrick Varelli, was a contractor. My mother, Odelia, taught accounting. My sister, Narissa, lived overseas. Rovan Sayer was my father's associate. Rovan was charming and always seemed to know when someone needed money. My parents said Rovan was putting together a property project. It will help all of us, my father said. Send another $800 a month. I'm already sending $800. Then send 16. Why? My mother said. We're securing something for the future. What exactly? She didn't answer. I refused. 2 weeks later, my mother placed documents in front of me. Tax paperwork. I scanned the pages. Why are there blank sections? They'll be completed later. I'm not signing blank documents. My father slammed the table. Do you think we're trying to hurt you? I think I have the right to know what I'm signing. 3 days later, I stopped sending money. A week later, they stopped answering. I moved to Northbridge. I thought the silence was temporary. 4 years passed before I saw the flyer. That night, I searched my name online. There were posts saying I had abandoned my family and become obsessed with money. Then I found a post from an aunt I had not spoken to in years. Please keep the Varelli family in your prayers. Kaylin stopped sending money and then disappeared without saying goodbye. I stared at those words. I had stopped sending money. That was true. The rest was a lie. I called my sister. She answered after 6 rings. Kaylin, did Mom and Dad tell everyone I'm missing? Silence. Then she said, You're not supposed to know. Why? They filed a report. Why would they report me missing when they know I'm alive? Narissa whispered. They said you stole money. What money? A family investment account. I've never had access to one. I know. Then why would they say that? I don't know. Her voice dropped. Rovan has been visiting them. I remembered Rovan telling me I was too young to understand how property worked. What does he have to do with this? I asked. Narissa hesitated. Everything, I think. The next morning, I requested the report. It said I had left after a dispute, become unstable, and might have taken money. Then I saw the date, October 14th, 2022. I checked my bank statements. On October 14th, I bought a train ticket to Northbridge, checked into a hotel, and signed a lease the next morning. I had the records. Someone had created a false timeline. That afternoon, I drove to the municipal records office. A woman in a gray jacket met me at the security desk. Mr. Varelli? Yes. I'm Tamsin Oral. I'm a municipal compliance auditor. She carried a folder. I've been looking for you. You found me. Yes. And that is the problem. She led me into a conference room. On the table were documents bearing my name. The first page showed an organization I had never heard of, Varelli Community Housing. I've never heard of this. Tamsin opened another file. You are listed as its director. No. You are also listed as the person who authorized its bank account. No. She turned another page. You signed the grant applications. I did not. She studied my face. Then someone has been using your identity. The foundation had received nearly $900,000, and my signature appeared on every major authorization. How much? Nearly $900,000. I stared at the paperwork and noticed the registration date. It had been created shortly after I stopped sending money home at my parents' address. I looked at Tamsin. Who runs it? She turned the page. Reuven Sayer, my father's business partner. My hands went cold. Tamsin slid a bank statement toward me. A transfer of $180,000 had been made from the foundation to Sayer Development Holdings. The authorization carried my name. I never approved this. I believe you. Then why am I seeing it? Because the city is preparing to hold you responsible. She pushed a formal notice across the table. I had 48 hours to explain the funds. My phone vibrated. A message from Narissa. Don't trust Dad. Before I could respond, another message appeared. And don't go home. I looked at Tamsin. Why report me missing if they were using my name? Her expression changed. Because if everyone believed you had disappeared, nobody would ask why your name kept appearing on those documents. For 4 years, I had thought my parents were angry because I refused to keep sending them money. Now I realized the money had only been the beginning. Someone had needed me to disappear before they could make me responsible for a crime. And if Tamsin was right, my parents were not trying to find their missing son. They were trying to make sure the real one never came back. I did not go home that night. For the first time since I learned about the foundation, I understood why my sister had warned me. Someone had spent 4 years building a version of my life that did not exist. And now that version was about to become evidence against me. Tamsin closed the folder and looked at me. Where are you staying? Northbridge. Do your parents know your address? They shouldn't. Good. Don't tell them. I stared at the documents. Can I take copies? Not yet. Why? Because I don't know who has access to the records. That answer bothered me. You think someone inside the city office is involved? I think we shouldn't assume anything. She handed me a card. Call me before you contact anyone. I took it. Even my sister? Tamsin paused. Especially your sister. I left the office just before 6. The parking lot was almost empty. As I walked toward my car, I noticed a dark SUV parked near the entrance. It had been there when I arrived. I stopped. The driver looked away. I kept walking. When I reached my car, the SUV started its engine. I got inside and locked the doors. The SUV stayed where it was. I drove out slowly. It followed me for 3 blocks. Then it turned onto another street. Maybe it was coincidence. At that point, I was no longer comfortable believing in coincidence. I spent that night in a hotel under my middle name. The room was small and faced the highway. I barely slept. At 2:14 a.m., my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. You should have stayed away. I stared at the message. Another arrived. The money isn't yours. Stop digging. I called Tamsin. She answered immediately. What's wrong? I forwarded the messages. She was quiet for a moment. Don't respond. I wasn't planning to. Can you send me the number? Already did. Good. I sat on the edge of the bed. Who would know I'm investigating? Someone who has access to the case. Reuven. Possibly. What about my parents? We don't know yet. That last sentence stayed with me. We don't know yet. At 8 the next morning, I drove to the county archive. I needed to understand how my name had appeared on the foundation documents. The archive was in an old government building on Mercer Street. The lobby smelled of paper and disinfectant. Rows of filing cabinets filled the basement. Tamsin met me there. She had requested the original incorporation records. An archivist brought us a sealed box. Everything submitted when the organization was created, Tamsin said. I opened it. The first document was the foundation's registration. My name, my address, my date of birth, my signature. I looked at it for several seconds. I recognized the signature. Tamsin leaned closer. Yours? No. She looked surprised. It looks almost identical. Almost. I pointed to the final letter of my surname. I crossed it backward. The forged signature crossed it forward. Tamsin photographed the page. That's useful. We continued. There were copies of my driver's license, my old employment identification, and even a utility bill from my childhood home. Someone had gathered enough personal information to impersonate me convincingly. Then I found something that made no sense. A notarized statement dated October 18, 2022. 4 days after the date, my parents claimed I disappeared. It said I had voluntarily appointed Reuven Sayer as my financial representative. I stared at the page. I never signed this. Tamsin checked the notary seal. Do you know this notary? No. She searched the archive database. The notary was Edrin Soul. Tamsin stopped typing. What? She turned the screen toward me. Edrin Soul had died 18 months earlier. I looked back at the document. That's impossible. Exactly. Someone had used the identity of a dead notary to validate a document carrying my forged signature. This was no longer a family dispute. It was organized fraud. We photographed every page. Then Tamsin found a second problem. The foundation had received its first grant only 3 days after that notarized statement. Why would the city approve a grant so quickly? Because the application was marked urgent. Who marked it urgent? She checked. Reuven. I leaned back. What was the foundation supposed to do? Affordable housing. Did it? That's what we're investigating. Tamsin pulled up the property list. There were 7 addresses. We drove to the first one. It was an abandoned 2-story building on Harker Avenue. The windows were broken. The front door was secured with a chain. According to the foundation's records, the building had been renovated 18 months earlier and converted into 8 apartments. I looked through a gap in the fence. There's no way. Tamsin checked the report. The invoices say new plumbing, electrical work, roofing, flooring, and kitchen installations. The building doesn't even have working windows. We visited the second property. Same story. The third was worse. The foundation had reported 12 completed apartments. The building was empty. A real estate sign had been placed outside, but the property was not listed under the foundation. It belonged to a private company. Tamsin photographed the sign. Who owns it? I checked the public registry. The company was Sayer Development Holdings. Reuven's company. I looked at her. So the foundation received public money to renovate properties that Reuven already owned. That's what it looks like. And my name authorized the payments. Yes. We drove back to the archive. On the way, my sister called. I answered. Where are you? Why? Because Dad knows you're back. My grip tightened around the phone. How? I don't know. Did you tell him? No. Then who did? Narissa was silent. Kaylin, there's something else. What? Mom has a storage unit. What kind? Private. She rented it 4 years ago. What's inside? I don't know. How do you know it exists? I found the rental receipt. Where? In Dad's office. She lowered her voice. Reuven's name was on the receipt. That changed the situation. Why would Reuven have access to Mom's storage unit? I don't know. Do you know where it is? Yes. She gave me the address. Before we ended the call, she said, Don't go there. I almost smiled. You're the 3rd person to tell me that. I'm serious. So am I. I hung up. Tamsin had heard everything. We're not going there alone. The storage facility was on the outskirts of town. We arrived around 4 that afternoon. Tamsin had requested emergency access through the authorities. The manager led us to a unit at the end of a long concrete corridor. The lock had recently been replaced. Tamsin checked the paperwork. The rental account is in your mother's name. Who paid for it? She looked at the manager. He checked the system. Cash. Every month. Mostly. Who dropped it off? The manager hesitated. A man. Description. Late 40s. Tall. Dark hair. I already knew. Reuven. The manager unlocked the door. The room was filled with boxes. I recognized some immediately. Old family photographs. My school certificates. Copies of my university records. Letters I had written to my parents. My old employment contract. My tax returns. Someone had kept my entire history. Tamsin moved carefully through the boxes. This isn't just financial information. I picked up a folder. Inside were copies of my passport applications, insurance documents, and bank statements. Then I found something that made my stomach turn. There were recordings. Dozens of small digital files. Each one carried a date. I opened one. My own voice came through the speaker. I don't want anything from the family. I froze. Tamsin listened. Then she said, Did you say that? No. Another file. I took the money because I needed it. I had never said that either. A third. Don't contact me again. My voice. My words. But not my sentence. Tamsin looked at the equipment in the corner. A recording setup. Someone had taken recordings of me and edited them. They had been creating fake messages. I felt sick. Why? To make people believe you left voluntarily. I looked through another box. There was a handwritten calendar. Dates. Meeting locations. Payment amounts. Initials. RS. Rovan Sayer. And beneath them, another set. OV. Odelia Virelli. My mother. I stopped breathing for a second. My mother had not merely stayed quiet. She had been involved. I took a photograph of the page. Then I heard footsteps in the corridor. Tamsin turned. The manager appeared at the doorway. There was someone else asking about this unit. Who? Tamsin asked. He looked at me. Your father. My heart dropped. When? About 10 minutes ago. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls. All from my mother. Then a message appeared. Kaylin, please listen to me before you believe what you find. I showed it to Tamsin. She said nothing. A second message arrived. Rovan is not the person you should be afraid of. I stared at the screen. 4 years ago, I thought my parents had lied because I stopped sending money. Yesterday, I thought Rovan had used my identity to steal public funds. Now I was standing inside a storage unit containing evidence that my own mother had helped build the lie. And my mother was telling me the man I feared was not the real danger. Then my phone rang again. This time, it was my father. I answered. His voice was barely audible. Kaylin, get out of that building. Why? Because Rovan knows you're there. I looked toward the corridor. A shadow moved beneath the doorway. My father continued. He isn't trying to protect the money anymore. There was a pause. He's trying to find the person who has the original documents. The line went dead. I looked at Tamsin. Neither of us moved. Then someone tried the storage unit door from the outside. The storage unit door shook once. Then again. Someone was trying to open it. Tamsin immediately switched off the light. Stay back, she whispered. I moved behind a stack of boxes. The corridor outside went silent. Then a man's voice came through the metal door. Mr. Virelli? I recognized it. Rovan. I had not heard his voice in 4 years, but I remembered it immediately. Tamsin raised one finger to her lips. Rovan knocked twice. Kaylin, we should talk. I said nothing. You have documents that don't belong to you. Tamsin leaned toward me and whispered, Don't answer. Rovan waited. Then he said, Your parents didn't tell you everything. My father had said the same thing. The difference was that Rovan sounded calm, almost relaxed. Open the door, he said. I'll explain. Tamsin quietly called for assistance. Rovan tried the handle again. This time, the lock moved. I looked at the metal door. The manager had locked it from the outside. Rovan had a key. That meant someone had given him access. A second later, footsteps approached from the other end of the corridor. Rovan stepped away. We heard him speaking to someone. Then the footsteps moved farther away. Tamsin opened the door slightly. The corridor was empty. Now, she said. We moved quickly. We took photographs of the calendar, the recordings, and the documents that connected my mother to the operation. Tamsin sealed several items in evidence bags. Then we left through a rear exit. Outside, cold air hit my face. I looked back at the building. How did he get a key? We'll find out. What did he mean about original documents? I don't know yet. I pulled out my phone. My mother's message was still open. I called her. She answered immediately. Where are you? Why did Rovan have access to your storage unit? Silence. Mom. I didn't know he had a key. You're lying. She inhaled sharply. I deserve that. What are the original documents? Another pause. Your grandfather's trust. I stopped walking. My grandfather's what? Your grandfather created a property trust before he died. I know about the family property. You know about the property. Her voice shook. You don't know what he put in the trust. I looked at Tamsin. She had heard enough to understand. Where are the documents? I asked. I don't have them. Who does? I don't know. Then why did Rovan say he was looking for them? My mother began crying. Because the original trust gives you rights he cannot take. What rights? She whispered. The land. The line went silent. I looked at Tamsin. She immediately called the county property office. The family land was located near the Eastern Rail Corridor. It had belonged to my grandfather. I had always assumed it was simply inherited property. Tamsin pulled the current records. The land was still registered under the family trust. But there was a pending transfer request, filed 4 months earlier. I stared at the screen. Who requested it? Tamsin answered quietly. Rovan Sayer. I felt my stomach tighten. On what authority? She opened the filing. A power of attorney. My name was on it. Again. The same signature. The same false authorization. The transfer requested that the land be moved into a private investment company. Rovan controlled that company. I looked at my mother. You knew. I knew he wanted the land. How long? 4 years. That answer hurt more than anything else she had said. 4 years. The same amount of time I had believed my parents were simply angry with me. The same amount of time they had told people I disappeared. I asked, why didn't you warn me? We were afraid. Of Rovan. Yes. What did he threaten you with? She started crying again. Everything. I ended the call. Tamsin looked at me. We need to know what your grandfather actually put in that trust. We went to the courthouse archive. The original trust document was sealed because the estate had been handled privately. Tamsin filed an emergency request. While we waited, I called Nerissa. She answered from an airport. Where are you? Eastport. Why? I left because I thought Rovan was watching me. I closed my eyes. You knew about the trust? Not until recently. What did you find? She hesitated. I found an old letter from Grandpa. What did it say? That the land couldn't be sold before you turned 35. I checked the date. I was 32. That meant Rovan had 3 years. Why would he need to move it now? Because the city is planning a rail expansion. I looked at Tamsin. She was already checking the planning department database. The rail corridor had not been publicly announced, but a preliminary proposal existed. If the route was approved, the value of the surrounding land would increase dramatically. My grandfather's property sat directly along the proposed corridor. Suddenly, the housing foundation made more sense. The abandoned buildings, the fake renovations, the public grants, the transfers to Rovan's company. It was not just about stealing government money. The foundation was creating a financial network around properties Rovan wanted to control. My family land was the most valuable piece. Tamsin found another document, a development map. Several properties connected to the foundation were marked in red. They formed a corridor around my grandfather's land. He's buying everything around it, I said. Or trying to. Why? Tamsin looked at the map. Because whoever controls this area after the rail announcement could make millions. I remembered something my father had said 4 years earlier. Send more money. We're securing something for the future. At the time, I thought he was talking about his business. He had been talking about the land. We returned to the archive after lunch. The judge had approved our request. The clerk brought out the original trust file. My hands were shaking when I opened it. The document was older than I was. My grandfather had written a detailed inheritance plan. The land belonged to the family trust. I was the primary beneficiary. But there was another condition. If anyone attempted to transfer the property through fraud, the trust would automatically block the transaction and trigger an independent review. I looked at Tamsin. So he can't legally take it. Not if this document is valid. I turned the page. There was a second beneficiary. Nerissa. I stared at her name. Why didn't anyone tell us? Tamsin continued reading. Then she stopped. There's more. The trust required both beneficiaries to approve any permanent transfer after I turned 35. Until then, neither of us could sell the land independently. Rovan had been trying to obtain both signatures. He had already forged mine. That left Nerissa. I called her. She answered immediately. Did you find the trust? Yes. Then you know. Know what? She was silent. About what? I signed something. My heart sank. What did you sign? I thought it was a company document. Whose company? Vera Logistics. The same company that had transferred $62,000 to my father. I sat down. Nerissa, what did you sign? A director authorization. Did it mention the land? No. Did Rovan give it to you? No. Who did? She hesitated. Mom. I closed my eyes. My mother had involved both of us, but maybe not willingly. Where is the document? With me. Bring it here. I can't. Why? Because someone is following me. I looked at Tamsin. Where are you now? Eastport Central Station. Stay inside. I already am. Don't leave. The call ended. We drove to the station. It took 40 minutes. Nerissa was waiting near a ticket counter. She looked frightened. When she saw me, she handed me an envelope. I didn't know what it was. I opened it. It was the director authorization. At the bottom was a clause granting Vera Logistics authority to negotiate property acquisitions on behalf of its directors. The signature was Nerissa's. This one was real. I looked at her. You signed this. I didn't understand it. You signed it. I know. She started crying. I was trying to help Mom. That sentence stopped me. What did she tell you? She said Rovan would destroy the family if we didn't cooperate. I looked at the document again. Rovan had never needed to force Nerissa to forge anything. He only needed her real signature on the wrong page. Then someone walked past us. A man wearing a dark coat. He looked at Nerissa, then kept walking. She grabbed my arm. That's him. Who? I don't know. The man disappeared into the crowd. Tamsin immediately called security, but the station had too many exits. He was gone. We returned to Northbridge that evening. The next morning, my father called. His voice was different. Kaylin, I need you to listen. What? I found something. Where? At the house. What? The original ledger. My heart started beating faster. What ledger? Rovan's. How did you get it? I took it from his office. Why? Because I finally realized what he was doing. I said nothing. My father continued. It has every payment. Every payment to whom? Everyone. Then give it to Tamsin. I can't. Why? Because one page has your name. I stared at the phone. What does it say? I don't know. Read it. He hesitated. Then he whispered. It says you received a final payment of $62,000. The same amount I had seen in the bank records. The same payment that had supposedly gone through Vera Logistics. I said, Dad, I never received that money. I know. Then why is it in the ledger? I think that's why Rovan needed you to disappear. Before I could respond, there was a loud sound on his end. My father gasped. Then the call cut off. I called back. No answer. Again. Nothing. Tamsin stood up. We're going to your parents' house. We arrived 20 minutes later. The front door was open. My father's car was in the driveway. My mother was sitting on the kitchen floor. She was unharmed. But my father was gone. Where is Dad? I asked. She looked at me. I don't know. What happened? He came home with the ledger. Where is it? She shook her head. Rovan took it. I looked around the room. How? He came through the back door. Did he hurt Dad? I don't know. My mother pointed toward the hallway. There was blood on the floor. Not much, but enough. Then I saw something else. A torn piece of paper near the kitchen table. I picked it up. Only 3 words were visible. Final beneficiary declaration. Tamsin looked over my shoulder. Her expression changed. Kaylin. What? That isn't about your grandfather's land. Then what is it? She pointed to the bottom of the torn page. There was a second name beneath mine. Nerissa Virelli. And suddenly I understood why Rovan had been searching for both of us. My father was missing. There was blood on the kitchen floor. And the last document Rovan had been searching for carried both my name and Nerissa's. For the first time, I stopped thinking about what Rovan wanted from us and started asking a different question. What did he need us to sign? Tamsin crouched beside the torn paper. Don't touch anything else. I already picked this up. That's fine. Put it in the evidence bag. She took it from me. My mother sat against the cabinet, shaking. Where did he take your father? I don't know. Tell me exactly what happened. She wiped her face. Your father came home around 6. He had a black notebook. The ledger. I think so. What happened next? He told me he was going to give it to you. Then, there was a knock. My mother looked toward the back door. Rovan walked in. Did Dad let him in? No. Then how? He had a key. I looked at Tamsin. Again. Another key. Rovan seemed to have access to every place my family believed was private. My mother continued. They argued. Your father said he was going to expose him. What did Rovan say? He said it was too late. Too late for what? She shook her head. I don't know. Where did the blood come from? I heard something fall. Then your father hit the floor. Was he conscious? For a few seconds. What did he say? My mother looked at me. He said, "Find the declaration." My stomach tightened. What declaration? He wouldn't explain. Tamsin stood. "We need the police." I know. The police arrived within minutes. They searched the house. There was no sign of my father. His phone was gone. His wallet was still on the counter. His car was still outside. That meant he had not left voluntarily. The back door showed signs of forced entry, but there were no fingerprints that could immediately identify Rovan. The detective asked my mother whether she knew where Rovan might have taken him. She said no. I wasn't convinced. Not because I thought she was lying. Because there was something she still wasn't telling us. Later that night, while the police were processing the house, my mother pulled me aside. "There is a safe." "Where?" "Under the floor in your father's study." I stared at her. "You knew about it?" "Yes." "What's inside?" "I don't know." "Then why didn't you tell the police?" "Because I was afraid." "Of what?" She looked toward the hallway. "Of what your father might have kept there." We went into the study. Behind a cabinet was a narrow wooden panel. My father had hidden the safe beneath it. The combination was not written anywhere. My mother said she had never opened it. I tried my father's birthday. Nothing. My mother's. Nothing. My grandfather's. The lock clicked. Inside was a black notebook. My father had been telling the truth. It was Rovan's ledger. I opened it. The pages contained dates, names, amounts, company numbers, and short notes. Some were marked with initials. Some had addresses. Some had question marks. Then I found the entries related to the foundation. Money received. Money transferred. Fake invoices. Payments to contractors. Payments to lawyers. Payments to my mother. Payments to my father. And then my name. Kaylin, 62,000. Final payment. I turned the page. There was another line. N. Varelli. Signature required. Nerissa's name. I looked at Tamsin. "What does this mean?" She read the entries. "It means Rovan was planning something that required both of you. But I already signed the foundation documents without knowing." "Not this." She pointed to a later entry. "Transfer after declaration." Then another. "Beneficiaries removed." I felt a chill. "What declaration?" Tamsin turned the page. Nothing. The next page had been removed. Not torn. Cut cleanly from the binding. Someone had taken it. My mother looked at the ledger. "I've never seen that." I turned toward her. "How long has Dad had this?" "I don't know." "Mom." She looked down. "About 2 years." I stared at her. "You knew he had evidence against Rovan for 2 years." I didn't know what it meant. "You could have asked." I was afraid. I was tired of hearing that word. Fear had become the excuse everyone used while my life was being destroyed. Then Tamsin noticed something inside the safe. A small metal key. Attached to it was a tag. M17. "What is that?" I asked. "I don't know." We searched my father's records. The key belonged to a storage locker at Eastport Station. The same station where Nerissa had been followed. The same place where she had given me the Vera Logistics document. We left immediately. The police wanted us to wait. Tamsin convinced them that the locker might contain evidence connected to a kidnapping. We reached Eastport after midnight. The station was almost empty. Locker M17 was at the far end of the terminal. The key worked. Inside was a briefcase. There were no documents. Only a small recorder. I pressed play. My father's voice came through. "If anything happens to me, this recording explains what I know." I looked at Tamsin. The recording continued. "Rovan Sayre approached me in 2022. He said the housing project was a way to recover money I had lost." My father's voice became quieter. I believed him. He admitted that he had helped Rovan create the foundation. He admitted that he had allowed my personal documents to be copied. He admitted that my mother had helped with accounting. Then he said something I had never heard before. Rovan told us Kaylin would be the ideal director because he had no criminal record and no business connections. I closed my eyes. The next sentence was worse. When Kaylin stopped sending money, Rovan told us the plan had to change. My father explained that Rovan had begun moving money through companies connected to the foundation. He had created fake debts in my name. He had forged my signatures. He had even created fake audio recordings. My father knew. My mother knew. They both allowed it. Then the recording changed. Rovin's voice appeared. Clear. Calm. Once Kaelan is declared missing, the property transfer becomes easier. My father's voice asked, "What if he comes back?" Rovin answered, "He won't." "How do you know?" "Because we'll make sure everyone believes he abandoned the family." I felt my jaw tighten. The recording continued. "The only problem is Nerissa, my sister's name." Again, Rovin said she had to sign a beneficiary declaration. Without her signature, the transfer could be challenged. My father asked what would happen if she refused. Rovin answered, "Then I'll use the company documents she already signed." I looked at Tamsin. The Vera authorization. Nerissa's real signature. He had planned around it. The recording ended. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then my phone rang. "Nerissa." I answered. "Where are you?" "At the hotel." "Lock the door." "Why?" "Rovin needs your signature." Silence. "What signature?" "The beneficiary declaration." She sounded confused. "I don't have it." "Did anyone give you a document recently?" "No." I looked at Tamsin. "Check your email." There was a pause. Then Nerissa gasped. "I have a message." "From whom?" "An attorney." "Name?" "Elira Voss." The same lawyer connected to Rovin's companies. "What does it say?" Nerissa began reading. "It says I need to attend a meeting tomorrow morning to finalize the transfer of family assets. Do not go." "I wasn't planning to." Forwarded to Tamsin. She did. The document contained a meeting location. A private conference room at the Marrow House. The same hotel my mother had mentioned. Tamsin looked at me. "We finally have a place." I nodded, but we still didn't know where my father was. At 4 a.m, the police found his car. It was abandoned near an industrial district. There was no blood inside, no sign of a struggle, but there was a receipt on the driver's seat. A motel, room 214. The address was 3 miles away. We arrived just after sunrise. The room was empty. The bed had not been slept in. The bathroom was dry, but on the desk was a sealed envelope. My name was written on it. Inside was a single photograph. It showed me standing outside the pharmacy where I had first seen the missing person flyer. Someone had taken it recently. On the back, 4 words were written. "You should have stayed gone." I looked at Tamsin. "This was taken after I returned." She nodded. "Yes." "Then Rovin has been watching me since the beginning." "Apparently." I turned the photograph over again. There was a second piece of writing beneath the first. A time. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. And underneath it, Marrow House. The meeting was not just about the declaration anymore. Rovin knew we were coming. He wanted us there. That meant he believed he still had something powerful enough to make us walk into his trap. We spent the rest of the day preparing. The police arranged surveillance. Tamsin secured copies of every document. Nerissa agreed to cooperate. My mother gave a formal statement. The only person still missing was my father. At 9:30 the next morning, we arrived outside the Marrow House. The hotel looked ordinary. Business travelers entered through the front doors. A delivery truck stopped near the kitchen. People carried coffee through the lobby. Nobody would have guessed that the most important meeting of my life was about to happen upstairs. At 9:58, Nerissa entered. I watched from across the street. At 10:03, Elira Voss arrived. At 10:07, Rovin walked through the lobby. He was carrying a leather briefcase. Then he stopped. He looked directly toward the window where I was standing. Even from across the street, I knew he had seen me. He smiled. My phone vibrated. One message. From an unknown number. "Your father is alive." A second message arrived immediately. "If you want him back, bring the original trust." I looked at Tamsin. "We don't have it." She frowned. "I know." Then I remembered the archive. The original trust had never left the courthouse, unless someone had removed it. I called the archive. The clerk answered. I asked for the trust file. There was a long pause. Then she said, "Mr. Varelli, I'm looking at the record now." "Is it there?" "No." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "The original trust document was checked out yesterday." "By whom?" The clerk sounded confused. "The authorization says it was released to you." I stared across the street at Rovin. He was still smiling. Someone had signed my name again. And this time, They had taken the one document that could stop the entire transfer. The courthouse had released my grandfather's original trust to me. Except I had never requested it. Someone had used my identity again. And Rovan had known exactly when it happened. I looked across the street at the Marrow house. He was still watching me through the hotel window. Tamsin stepped beside me. "Don't go inside." "I'm not. We need to find out who collected the trust." I called the courthouse again. "Can you tell me the name of the person who picked it up?" The clerk hesitated. "There's a signature." "My name?" "Yes." "Is there identification?" "Yes." "A driver's license number?" I gave her a moment. Then she said, "The number doesn't belong to you." I exhaled. "Whose is it?" "Your father's." "My father." The man who was supposedly missing. The man Rovan had supposedly taken. I looked at Tamsin. Someone used my father's license. Which means he may have collected the document himself. Unless someone has his identification. Tamsin shook her head. "Either way, we need to find him." My phone vibrated. An unknown number. "Stop looking for the trust." Then another message. "Your father will be released when the declaration is signed." I showed Tamsin. She called the police. Within minutes, the surveillance plan changed. The meeting at the hotel was no longer just an operation against Rovan. It was a negotiation involving my missing father. Nerissa was already inside. I called her. "Don't sign anything." "I won't." "Do they know you're cooperating?" "I don't think so." "Stay calm." She whispered. "Kaylin, there's something wrong." "What?" "Elira brought a second person." "Who?" "I don't know." "Describe him." "Older. Gray hair. Security badge." Tamsin immediately started checking the hotel staff. 5 minutes later, she had a name. Joran Vale. Former private security contractor. He had worked for Rovan for years. More importantly, his employment record showed that he had been hired by my father 4 years earlier. That meant he knew my family. He knew the house. He knew the storage unit. And possibly, he knew where my father was. Tamsin sent 2 officers to question him. He had already left. I looked toward the hotel. "We're losing time. We're not going in blind." She handed me an earpiece. "You stay outside." "Understood. Whatever happens, do not sign anything." I nodded. At 10:21, Elira came out of the hotel. She walked directly toward me. "Mr. Varelli." I did not move. "Where is my father?" She smiled slightly. "You always were direct." "I don't have time for games." "Neither does Rovan." She held out an envelope. "Your father is alive." "Proof." She opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph. My father was sitting in a chair. His face looked tired, but he was conscious. The photograph had been taken that morning. "Where is he?" "That depends on you." "What do you want?" "The original trust." "We don't have it." Elira studied me. "Then you have a problem." "No." "You do." She raised an eyebrow. "The courthouse has a certified copy." Her expression changed. Tamsin had been right. The original was important, but the court record contained enough information to establish its terms. Elira smiled again. "You're learning." "I learned because people kept trying to destroy my life." She lowered the photograph. "Your father made mistakes. So did my mother. And you." "I stopped sending money." She almost laughed. "That's what started this." "No. That's what exposed it." Her expression hardened. "Be careful." "I've been careful for 4 years." She walked away. At 10:40, Rovan finally came outside. He crossed the street alone. "Kaylin, where is my father?" "Safe." "Bring him here." "You don't give orders." "I do when you're holding my father." Rovan looked at me. "You've caused significant damage." "To your operation." "To your family." I laughed. "My family was damaged when you convinced them to use my identity." He stepped closer. "You think your parents were innocent?" "No." "Good." He glanced toward Tamsin. "I know you're recording." Tamsin did not respond. Rovan smiled. "You've always been too suspicious. I learned from you." He lowered his voice. "The trust isn't the real issue." "What is?" "Your father's ledger." I froze. "We have it." "I know." "Then you know everything." "No." He looked at me. "I know what your father wants you to believe." That sentence stopped me. "What does that mean?" Rovan turned toward the hotel. "Ask him why he kept the ledger." Then he walked away. I followed. "Rovan." He didn't stop. Tamsin grabbed my arm. Don't. We watched him disappear into the hotel. I turned to her. What was he talking about? I don't know. But he knows about the ledger. Obviously. No. He said my father wanted me to believe something. Tamsin thought for a moment. Your father recorded himself admitting involvement. Yes. But that recording may not be complete. I remember the cassette. There were gaps. The audio had jumped several times. I had assumed the recording equipment was damaged. Maybe it wasn't. We returned to the archive. Tamsin asked a forensic technician to examine the recording. The missing sections were not damaged. They had been deliberately removed. Someone had edited the file. My father's confession was real, but pieces were missing. The technician recovered one segment. My father's voice came through. I didn't know what Rovan intended to do with the land. Then another voice. My mother. You knew he was using Kalen's name. I knew. Then you have to tell him. I can't. Why? A long silence. Then my father said, because if Kalen finds out who actually started the foundation, he'll never forgive us. The recording stopped. I stared at Tamsin. Who started it? We need the rest. The technician recovered another segment. My father again. Rovan didn't create the foundation alone. My mother's voice. Who helped him? My father answered. Someone inside the city office. That was the missing piece. The foundation had not been approved simply because Rovan filed paperwork. Someone had pushed the grants through. Someone had marked the application urgent. Someone had made the process move faster than normal. We checked the original grant records. The approval officer was Darian Quill, Deputy Director of Municipal Development. He had retired 2 years earlier. Tamsin knew him. I worked under him. Did he know Rovan? Yes. How well? Well enough to attend the same private events. We searched his financial history. A consulting company had been created in his wife's name shortly after the foundation received its first grant. The company had received payments from Sayre Development Holdings. The amounts matched the dates of the grant approvals. That was our new connection. Rovan had help inside the city, and Darian Quill had been hiding it. We located him at a lakeside retirement community. He agreed to speak with us. At first, he denied everything. Then Tamsin placed the payment records on the table. He looked at them. I made mistakes. Did you help Rovan create the foundation? I approved applications, knowing they were fraudulent. I didn't know at first. When did you know? He looked at me. When your name appeared. Why did that matter? Because Rovan told me you had authorized the organization. I hadn't. I know that now. Why didn't you check? He lowered his eyes. Because I was being paid. That was the answer. Not fear. Not family. Money. Darian admitted that Rovan had paid him to accelerate grants and ignore inconsistencies. But he denied knowing about the forged trust transfer. Then he said something important. The original trust was never supposed to leave the courthouse. Who authorized the release? Someone using your father's credentials. Dad! Darian shook his head. No. Then who? He hesitated. Joran Vale, the former security contractor. The man who had been at the Marrow House. Darian explained that Joran had collected the trust using my father's identification. But why? We drove back to the hotel. The police had located Joran's vehicle. It was parked at an abandoned warehouse near the old rail yard. My father was there. We arrived with officers. The warehouse door was unlocked. Inside, my father was sitting on a chair. His hands were tied. Joran was gone. My father looked at me. I'm sorry. I knelt beside him. Are you hurt? No. Where is Rovan? He wasn't here. Who brought you? Joran. Why? My father looked at Tamsin. He wanted the ledger. Did he get it? No. Where is it? My father pointed toward a metal cabinet. Inside, the ledger was still there, but the original trust was missing. My father told us Joran had forced him to reveal where it was kept. Then Joran used his identification to collect the document. Why didn't he take the ledger? I lied. My father looked at me. I told him the ledger had already been destroyed. Tamsin opened the cabinet. The ledger was intact. Then my father said something that changed everything again. Rovan doesn't want the trust anymore. I frowned. Why not? Because the city announced the rail project this morning. Tamsin checked her phone. He was right. The rail expansion had officially been approved. The property values around my grandfather's land had already increased. I looked at my father. Then what does Rovan need? My father swallowed. The beneficiary declaration. Why? Because the declaration doesn't transfer the land. He looked directly at me. It transfers the right to control the land during the dispute. Tamsin went still. So he doesn't need ownership. My father nodded. He needs control long enough to sell the development rights. I finally understood. Rovan had been building a plan that could survive even if the land itself remained in my name. The foundation, the forged documents, the missing person report, the fake debt, the trust, everything had been designed to create one final moment where I would sign away control without realizing it. Then my father reached into his pocket. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. I found this in Rovan's office. I opened it. It was the beneficiary declaration. My name was already printed. Nerissa's name was underneath. There were 2 signature lines. Mine was blank. Nerissa's was blank. But the document contained one final clause. If either beneficiary refused to sign, the authority could be activated through a court-appointed representative. I looked at Tamsin. Who is the representative? She read the name. Then she went pale. Kaylin. What? The representative is Darian Quill. The same man who had been paid by Rovan. The same man who had helped approve the foundation. The same man who had just admitted his involvement. And suddenly the entire plan made sense. Rovan didn't need to convince me to sign. He only needed to make the court believe I was unavailable again. My father's expression changed. He has one more move. What? My father looked at the declaration. He's going to make you disappear a second time. My father was right. Rovan's final move was not to kill me, threaten me, or steal the land directly. He planned to make the law believe I was unavailable again. And this time, he had a way to make it look legitimate. Tamsin read the beneficiary declaration again. Darian Quill cannot legally become your representative simply because you refuse to sign. Unless he convinces a court I'm unavailable. My father nodded. That's what Rovan did 4 years ago. I looked at him. How? He created the missing person story first. Then he created financial records showing you had abandoned your obligations. So the declaration would make sense if a judge believed I was gone. Yes. Tamsin stood. Then we need to move before he files anything. We returned to Northbridge that afternoon. The police secured my father's statement and the ledger. Nerissa came to the station. When she saw Dad, she ran toward him. They hugged. I stood several feet away. I was relieved he was alive, but I could not forget that he had helped create the situation. My father looked at me. I know what you're thinking. I don't know what to think. You should hate me. I don't. He looked surprised. I hate what you did. He nodded. That's fair. My mother arrived later. She had been questioned separately. When she saw my father alive, she cried. Then she apologized to both of us. Not once. Not twice. She apologized for the money, for the forged documents, for the recordings, for telling people I had disappeared, for allowing Rovan to use our family. This time, nobody interrupted her. When she finished, I said, "You don't get to decide whether we're a family again." She nodded. I know. The next morning, Tamsin brought me to the courthouse. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 2 p.m. Rovan had already filed a petition claiming I was financially irresponsible, unavailable, and incapable of managing the family trust. He attached copies of the fake documents. He also submitted statements from relatives who believed I had disappeared. I looked at the filing. He's trying to use his own lie as evidence. Tamsin nodded. Exactly. The judge entered the courtroom at 2. Rovan was not there. Elira Voss represented him. Darian Quill appeared as the proposed representative. I sat beside Tamsin. My father sat behind us. Nerissa was on my other side. Elira began. Your Honor, this matter concerns the responsible management of valuable family property. I almost laughed. She described me as an absent beneficiary who had abandoned financial responsibilities. Then she presented the missing person report. The judge examined it. Is Mr. Varelli present? Elira looked toward me. Her expression changed. Apparently. The judge looked directly at me. Mr. Varelli? Yes, Your Honor. The courtroom became silent. The judge looked at the report again. According to this document, you have been missing for 4 years. I have been living in Northbridge for 4 years. Elira stood. Your Honor, that does not explain the financial records. Tamsin handed the judge a certified copy of my employment records. Then my lease, bank statements, tax filings, medical records, travel records. Every month for 4 years, I had created a paper trail proving where I was. The missing person report said I had vanished. My life said otherwise. The judge asked, why was this evidence not discovered during the original missing person investigation? I answered, because nobody was looking for me. That sentence changed the room. Tamsin submitted the forensic report. It showed that the signatures on the foundation documents were forged. She submitted the dead notary record. She submitted the storage unit evidence. Then the ledger. Elira objected. The judge overruled her. Tamsin explained every payment, every transfer, every fake invoice, every connection to Rovan. Then she played my father's recording. His voice filled the courtroom. He admitted helping Rovan create the foundation. He admitted knowing my identity was being used. Then came Rovan's voice. The recording clearly captured him discussing my disappearance. Elira's face went pale. Darian Quill looked down. The judge asked him, Mr. Quill, do you still believe you should serve as representative for the beneficiary? He did not answer. The judge repeated the question. No, Your Honor. Why? Darian looked at me. Because I was involved. That admission ended his role. But the hearing was not finished. The judge examined the beneficiary declaration. He asked why it had been submitted. Elira said it was intended to protect the property. The judge looked at me. Do you intend to sign this document? No. Why? Because I do not trust the people who prepared it. The judge nodded. Reasonable. Then he made the ruling. The petition was denied. The beneficiary declaration was rejected. The attempted property transfer was suspended. The court ordered an independent review of every transaction connected to the family trust, and the missing person report was formally corrected. I was no longer listed as missing. I was officially recorded as having been located alive. The entire scheme had failed, but Rovan was not finished. He was arrested that evening. Joran Vale was arrested the following morning. Elira cooperated with investigators after learning that the evidence against her was overwhelming. Darian accepted a plea agreement. The city reopened the housing program investigation. The foundation was dissolved. The remaining funds were frozen. Then the forensic audit began. It took months. The final report showed that more than $1.4 million had passed through the foundation. Over $780,000 had been misappropriated. My name appeared on 63 fraudulent documents. I had received none of the stolen money. The $62,000, final payment, had been moved through 3 companies before reaching an account controlled by Rovan. The transaction had been created specifically to make it look as if I had benefited. The truth was finally complete. I had not stolen the money. I had not abandoned my family. I had not disappeared. I had been deliberately erased from a story that depended on my absence. Rovan eventually pleaded guilty to identity fraud, forgery, financial crimes, conspiracy, and attempted property fraud. Joran pleaded guilty to kidnapping and document theft. Elira lost her law license. Darian was convicted for corruption. My parents were also prosecuted. That part was difficult. They had helped Rovan. They had allowed my name to be used. They had lied to relatives. They had let people believe I was gone. My father received a suspended sentence and restitution requirements. My mother received probation. They lost their house and most of their savings. They did not escape responsibility, but they also did not receive the same punishment as Rovan because the court recognized that they had eventually cooperated and provided evidence. I did not ask the court to be harsher. I did not ask for revenge. I wanted the truth documented. That was enough. The family land remained in the trust. When the rail expansion was completed, its value increased dramatically. Rovan had planned to sell the development rights for millions. He received nothing. The city later offered to purchase part of the land. I agreed on one condition. A portion would be used for affordable housing. The project was approved. 2 years later, the first building opened. Narissa helped manage the financial education program. My father volunteered repairing furniture. My mother taught residents how to manage household budgets. They were not forgiven overnight. Neither was I required to forgive them. But people changed when consequences became real. I changed too. I stopped measuring my worth by how much money I could send home. I stopped believing that keeping peace was more important than asking questions. And I stopped feeling guilty for leaving when my family demanded something I could not give. One afternoon, I returned to the pharmacy where everything had started. The missing person flyer was gone. There was no photograph of me, no accusation, no story, just a community bulletin board filled with ordinary notices. I stood there for a moment. Then my phone rang. It was Tamsin. The final property audit came through. Anything new? No. That's good. She laughed. You're finally boring. I've been waiting for that. After we hung up, I walked outside. The street looked exactly as it had 4 years earlier. Cars passed. People carried groceries. A bus stopped at the corner. Nothing looked dramatic. That was what I wanted. An ordinary life. A life where my name belonged to me. A life where I could choose who to help without being threatened. A life where saying no did not make me a bad son. My parents had spent 4 years telling everyone I had disappeared after I stopped sending money home. They thought my absence would protect their secret. Instead, the truth survived in every record I left behind. My lease, my job, my taxes, my bank statements, my medical records, my sister's testimony, my father's recording, the foundation's accounts, the forged signatures, the ledger, the trust. They had created a story about my disappearance, but they could not erase the evidence that I had been living. And that became the final form of karma. Rovan wanted control of my name. He lost his companies. He wanted control of my inheritance. He lost the property. He wanted everyone to believe his version of events. The evidence proved him wrong. My parents wanted to protect themselves by allowing me to become the family scapegoat. They lost their home and their trust with me. And I did not become richer because I defeated them. I became free. That was the part nobody could take back. I never disappeared. I simply stopped paying for a family secret that was never mine to carry. And when the truth finally surfaced, I did not need revenge. I only needed to stand there and let the record speak. Because sometimes the strongest way to defeat people who try to erase you is not to destroy them. It is to build a life they no longer have any power over. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more stories about family betrayal, hidden schemes, unexpected twists, and the moment the truth finally catches up with the people who thought they could control it.